Hello everyone, welcome back to Metis IS. This is Sonia Gupta and we are continuing with our series of Panchayati Raj today. So just for the quick revision, what we have done till now is we have done the complete evolution, how Panchayati Raj came into existence, what was its structure at the time of independence, how it got constitutionalized. We have done all. Then we have moved on to the salient features of constitutional amendment. And in constitutional amendment, as I told before, that when any act happens, you should have the idea why you want to do it. So we have discussed that idea also, and based on that idea, you create certain institutions. So we have created certain institutions. We have done its composition also, structure and composition, how the structure of institutions will be, what will be the functions, and to perform certain functions, institutions must have certain powers. And then we have done that to perform this function, it is not only powers that institutions require. To run these institutions, it is the finances also. The reason why? Because Panchayati Raj, actual role of panchayats are in the grassroots level, where there is requirements in agriculture field, non-farm activities, social welfare activities like health, education, so that there is quick implementation of the services and good governance can be applied at the grassroots level so that people are directly benefited. So ultimately, I told that we want to provide good life to people. We want to improve their living standards, everything. And therefore, panchayats have been mandated with agriculture, with certain functions in the field of agriculture, in infrastructure, in the field of social welfare. And for that, you need money, right? Finances. So, composition only provides structure. How it will be operated is through finances. How it will be operated is through human resources. So in this particular part or particular lecture, today we are going to discuss only about finances. That to operate panchayats, you need finances. And from where these finances are coming. Okay, so today's lecture is completely devoted to the finances part. So let's first talk about the what all is happening in finances. For example, if panchayat has to run, okay, if panchayat has to run, it needs certain revenue. It needs revenue. Why it needs revenue? To spend for expenditure purpose, right? Now question is from where all this revenue will come. Question is from where this revenue will come. So what are the sources of revenue? So first we have to understand that what are the sources of revenue. Now question coming on to revenue. Revenue it can generate on its own. That means own sources of revenue. Or it might get from someone else as grants. Now these revenue is their revenue capital. Apart from that, revenue part, apart from that, it can also receive revenue in the form of loans, borrowings, right? So if you remember the budget part in economy, so you must have done that for revenue, for receipts, you have revenue receipt and capital receipt. For capital receipt, there is obligations, future obligations, or asset is created, or liability is there. For revenue, it is not so, right? There is no decrement or decrease in assets or no increase in liability in case of revenue. So same way, for the union government, as you have read, for the panchayats also they can have this, right? You must have done that receipts are of two types, revenue and capital. Then revenue can be tax, non-tax, everything, right? Revenue. For capital, you must have done borrow, you must have done also grants, etc., right? So same way, even panchayats can have that part. So here what we are doing is that revenue in case of panchayats can be its own source of revenue, it can get grants, or it can generate its capital receipts in the form of. So what are the provisions given to it? So the first provision is under 243H. What does 243H says? It enables panchayat to levy and appropriate local taxes and fees. That local taxes and fees can be levied and collected, appropriated by the panchayats for their function. This creates their own source of revenue. This creates their own source of revenue. After that, they can also get grant both from union as well as from state. They can get grant both from union as well as state. So remember again the pyramidal structure: local self-government, state and union. See, picturization is very important because there are lots of facts you won't be able to remember. So when you picturize everything, when you have rationale, when you have logic behind things, you don't have to remember the facts. Automatically you'll remember that local self-government is there. It will have its own revenue. It can get from state. It can also get from union. Like, for example, a child is there in your house. He can have his own savings. He can also take money from father. He can also take from grandfather. Same way here also. Okay. So, it can generate its own revenue from state. It can take from union. It can take as grants. And then it can also do borrowings also. Right. So, for central government of a union, at union level or federal level, you have finance commission, and this finance commission is given in article 280. Right, it is given in article 280. So in article 280 section 3bb, central finance commission recommends funds to supplement panchayat resources. Okay, so even central finance commission, it gives funds to, it helps in supplementing funds to panchayat resources. Next is article 243I, where specifically state finance commission was formed, and in article 243I, state finance commission was formed and the mandate was given as to review the panchayat finances every 5 years. Okay, so 243 में they can have their own taxes and fees. 283 में they'll get finances or grants from or funds from center. 243I they will get grants, or state finance commission will be formed every 5 years that will review its finances and also recommend states to devolve the finances and to increase their finance resources. So what does a function it does? It advises state government on tax distribution, grants and financial improvement. Apart from that, they can have their own borrowings. What are own borrowings? They can take their own loans. Even recently, the local self-governments have also started opening or releasing bonds also. For example, if you have heard, municipal corporations, that is at urban level, but at local self-government, they are doing that also. So borrowings are, but in case of panchayat, they are rare, and they can also take with state approval. Apart from that, there can be grants from public also. आम जनता ने आके दे दिया, right? So even public can give. Community contributions can happen. Partnerships can happen. For example, voluntary contributions, CSR funds, local asset leases. For example, there is a billboard in a village where advertisement can be kept and revenue or rent can be generated. There can be corporate social responsibilities where the big companies are coming, and under their corporate social responsibility obligations they can give funds. There can be voluntary contribution. For example, there is park nearby your house and it is not well maintained, and the people comes collectively to give the money to renovate that park, right? So what are the provisions under which it can get loans or money or revenue is, the logic here is that it will get revenue from its own resources, from Central Finance Commission and from State Finance Commission. Then it can has its own resources under borrowings and even community contributions. Okay, next coming on, what are the challenges it is facing? So, first we'll see some statistics and then we'll go on what are the challenges regarding finances to Panchayati Raj institutions. So, regarding financial challenges, we see that despite constitutional empowerment, constitution has various provisions, but still panchayats do not have adequate finances. Finances are inadequate. And there is a report by RBI itself in the year 2022-23 where RBI clearly says that the panchayats are not generating enough revenue from their own taxes. Rather, they are primarily dependent upon center and states. And the larger chunk here comes from center. Means whatsoever revenue panchayat is generating, out of that almost 80% is coming from center. Whatsoever revenue panchayats has, 80% comes from center. Next 5% comes from states and 1% is earned through taxes and 4% from non-tax resources. So you can say in whole 85% of their taxes comes in the form of grant from center or state. Now in absolute figures, what it has been mentioned that on average each panchayat earn only rupee 21,000 from their taxes. Only 21,000 comes from taxes, 17 lakhs comes from central government grants. So this financial dependency, what is the drawback of it? Since it is depending a lot on center and state for its finances, the drawback is it is not independent. For example, if you are dependent on your parents for your finances, means you will not be independent in decision making. You won't be able to take your own decisions. For example, you want to buy something, certain clothes, certain jacket for you, right? And your parents consider it a luxury or they think that it is not important for you. So if you are dependent on your parents, will you be able to buy it? No. You are not standing on your own feet. So same happens here, that if panchayats are dependent upon the government, the upper limits with the panchayats, no. It undermines their autonomy. They have to depend upon the states. If states feel like that this function which you want to do or this project you want to do is not feasible, they cannot do it. If you have seen the Panchayat series, clearly they have shown that they wanted to build a road in their village, but they didn't have finances and they had to again and again go to the MLA for the finances. Means they remain dependent upon states and center for it. So it undermines their autonomy, with many states not effectively giving PRI authority to levy. Even some states do not give the PRI authority to levy local taxes, and if they have also, they are reluctant. Why they are reluctant to raise their own taxes or revenue? Because the sarpanch feels or the panch feels that he is living in this village only, and if he imposes taxes on these people, this will mar his reputation, right? So even they are reluctant to impose taxes. Okay, so since they do not have their own taxes, they are highly dependent upon the higher authorities, higher levels. So this is the report I was talking about here, RBI report, and this is the table from there only. So what it shows here is that if you clearly see the revenue receipts of panchayats. So from 2000 20, 21, 21, 22, 22, 23, 3 years it has been given, and the resources are declining. First thing. Second thing, own tax revenue is just approx 700 and non-tax revenue is approx 1400. And see the grants from central government is around 24,000 crores, and from the state is around 8,000 crores. It is in crores, right? So they are generating very less. This is for all the panchayats. This complete is for all the panchayats. When we take average for every panchayat, so you will see here that how many thousand rupees they are collecting. So almost per panchayat, if you see here, it is around 17 lakh rupees which is coming from central government, and there is only 21,000 rupees which is coming from this here 21,000 rupees which is coming from own tax revenue. Because it is in thousand, it will be like 3 zeros at the back. It is just 21,000. Here it will be again 3 zeros, so it is 17 lakh. So see the dependency. 80% coming from center grant, 15% coming from the state grants, 4 from non-tax revenue and 1 from on-tax revenue. So their generation is very weak. So if I have to write the financial challenges, will you be able to write financial challenges here? See, we'll go step by step. Okay, it's very easy. You don't have to cram the points. It's very, very easy. First thing first, that they do not have their own revenue. For example, you take on yourself. You want to become independent. First question is, you want to do all the stuff in your life which you want. So first thing is, and what is lacking in you is that point can be, if you are not able to do your things independently, first you do not have your own source of revenue. खुद का ही पैसा नहीं है, खुद का. The reason for this is that there can be narrow tax base, right? Because village do not have economic activities, agriculture income is not taxed. So this means that taxation base, the number of people who are paying the taxes are very less. Then the rates are not updated, they are very less, and they are not as per inflation. So there is property charges, user charges, they are not updated, they are old back, and they do not consider inflation. Next, if they have their taxes also, first thing is tax base hi kam hai, then rates come hai, then if they have their own taxes also, they do not have staff to collect it. So in whole, their own source of revenue is less. So why own source of revenue is less? You must have seen here that they are reluctant to impose taxes. If they impose also, there is narrow tax base, there are outdated rates, and the collection system is not computerized. There is no dedicated staff. That means human capital is not there, and even small taxes go uncollected. Now, because of this, what is happening? So immediately you will have a second point ready here, that they do not have their own source of revenue. Then where they are dependent? They are dependent upon someone else. So there is fiscal imbalance. Fiscal imbalance, why? Because there is over dependency on grants coming from center and state, and because of that there is loss of autonomy, because they are not able to prioritize their needs. They are not able to reallocate. Center and state gives funds for specific purpose, so they are tied grants. Tied grants means the grants which are tied to certain function, that if it has come for water, Jal Jeevan mission or some other mission, then you have to spend there only, you cannot spend somewhere else. Okay, so these are tied grants which are coming. If they want to build a park, might be there is no money coming for the park, so there is no there is no independency, that is autonomy is not there. Next, what happens is, if they are dependent on grants also, so grants should come in structured way. First, do not have their own revenue. Second, dependent on someone else. Third, the person on whom they are dependent They are not there only. So what happens? There is inertia there. Legal requirement is that every state must form SFC, that is State Finance Commission, every 5 years. But what is the ground reality? That their constitution is delayed. The states do not even form SFCs. And if they are formed also, they recommend also, their reports are not, their recommendations are not accepted. Okay, so panchayats lack a predictable taxes that from here it should come. For example, if you have to make your own budget, your own source of revenue is less, but you say that okay, let's say if from father this much money will come, from grandfather this much will come, but again, or mother this much will come, but again that money is unpredictable because there is no legal or no authority to determine that this is a fixed amount of money you'll be getting. So grants are also not fixed. There is no fixed formula. And the next thing is, if they have finances also, if they have their revenue also, that remains uncollected because there is no clerk, no accountant, etc. There is a secretary and clerk, but no accountant or revenue officers to increase their revenue sources. So skilled staff is not there, and whatsoever meager revenue they have, they remain financially mismanaged. Why? Because there is no experience of budget preparation, bookkeeping, revenue mobilization. So budget preparation is important, that I'll have these many revenues and I have to spend this much. So first, revenue is less. Second, expenditure also, they do not know where exactly to put and how much to put. Okay, so do you see a comprehensive way that the issues are there? एक तो spend करने में भी दिक्कत है. Delayed fund flows. If funds are granted from state and center also, they remain delayed. They are not approved. If they are approved also, they receive it very late in the financial year, and due to which unspent funds are there. And again, it is passed to next budget cycle. And the next thing is accountability risk, governance risk. So if expenditure is there, villagers do not know. There is no transparency or low transparency. Villagers do not know how much money their panchayat actually received, how much they spent, and then there is leakage potential also through corruption, and without any social audits or Gram Sabha, because Gram Sabha acts like just like Parliament. So just like Parliament holds government accountable, executive accountable, Gram Sabha here holds executive accountable, that is Sarpanch accountable. So there is no scrutiny, there is no accountability of the executive, and the funds, the meager funds, are also misappropriated. So how do you strengthen finance in Panchayati Raj? So there are several recommendations from RBI only, which promotes greater decentralization. It empowers local leaders to enhance effectiveness. So we have to increase the receipts, and then we have to make the expenditure worthy, and then this complete we have to have audit to maintain transparency, right? Audit we need to have both at social level and legal level. Just like at legal level in union, what do you have? You have Controller and Auditor General of India, CAG, right? States expenditure are also audited by CAG only. But what about the panchayats? This creates accountability, right? So what you have to do, what we should do now, we have to focus on financial autonomy and sustainability, so that there is transparent budgeting, fiscal discipline is there, community involvement is there. because ultimately you wanted to provide good governance at grassroots level where community participates. So there should participation should be there, staff training should be there, and monitoring should be there. So for finance, first we have to increase their finances, that is revenue generation capabilities. Then we have to teach them how to spend that money, how to make that budget. We have to leverage technology for transparency and community participation. So at all steps. So do you remember four broad things where you have to focus on receiving, increasing the revenue. See, sometimes what happens when you start writing the mains answer, you just revolve around one point, but there are several steps to it. First, increase the revenue. Second, manage or teach them capacity building for expenditure or creating budgets. Then, using digital transformation execution and transparency and community participation for correctly identifying and the needs as well as to hold the executive accountable. So, continuous Gram Sabha engagement must be there. So, what is the way forward for it? First, increase the own source revenue. How do you increase the own source revenue? First, reform the property tax structure. We have to update the valuation, the taxes which are outdated, we have to update them. We have to simplify the billing structures. Then we have to revise the user charges on water, market, facilities, fees, and we have to incentive matching. That means state matches every rupee of new local revenue with additional grant. Additional grants must be there for the facilities. First, खुद का revenue सुधारो. Next, the grants which are coming from state finance commission through from states through state finance commission. So state finance commission must be timely constituted. It should be properly debated, implemented, and there should be oversight whether the government or the executive has taken steps or taken the recommendations or not, and if not, why they have not taken. This ensures the accountability. Next, we have to optimize central finance commission grants also. For example, the tied grants which are there, we have to decrease them and increase the untied grants so that there is flexibility in funds and panchayats can depend. See, ultimate goal of the panchayat was that the issues are arising at the local level, so they should be resolved at local level. But again, when the funds are tied at the from the upper level and they do not require those funds for that specific purpose. For example, there is already um, water supply in a village and they do not need water funds for the water supply, but the money is coming for Jal Jeevan Mission or Har Ghar Nal Se Jal, right? But the money is not being required, so that remains unspent, and that was tied fund, right? So untied share should be there so that if they do not require money for one service, they will be able to utilize for some other service. Then performance incentives must be given, that if panchayats are doing good work, they must be incentivized. What happens again, you have both competitive and cooperative federalism should not only with between the states, it should also be with panchayats. So again, a angle of cooperative and competitive federalism, but in case of panchayats. Next, we have to build financial management capacity. That means we have to train capacity building of, or the human capital should be efficiently trained. For example, Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan training programs, regular workshops should be happening on budgeting, e-governance tools should be taught, and auditing procedure should be taught. At block level, finance officers should be deployed. They should deploy accountants for several panchayat. One accountant is sufficient, just like one CA can do work for several people. Same way one accountant can do. You do not need to have a separate accountant for every panchayat. So at block level, one finance officer or the accountant can do the financial planning and collection for several villages. Next, we have to enhance transparency. So we have to work at all the stages. We should have digital accounts. There should be live publication of budgets and expenditure. There should be Gram Sabha audit where people can discuss, deliberate upon the actions and can hold executive accountable. Next, alignment of function with funds on the principle of subsidiarity. That we have already seen that 29 functional items are given to the panchayat. So there should be clear activity mapping that these all functions have to be done by them, and therefore funds have to be given to them. Okay, it should not be like these function you will do, but funds will have it. So that should be clearly devolved. So matching the devolved function with the devolved funds. Fund should be given. So local decision making must be promoted rather than one size fit all approach. And we know that the major objective of Panchayati Raj institution was to not have one size fit all approach, but to have the regional approaches, local solutions to local problems based on principle of subsidiarity. So here with the conclusion, you may mention here that tide grants indirectly goes against the one size fit all approach, because there is that one solution which everyone has to follow, right? So this is the way forward. Next we'll be talking about that how Panchayati Raj has been able to change the lives of women. So we have seen that Panchayat was for democratic governance. So for governance we need finances. So we have discussed finances here. Then another objective. See, right now we are going completely in analytical part. We have done the structural part of the act. Now we'll be seeing how practically it was executed, what were the achievements, and slowly move towards the drawbacks also. So whether the amendment which we took in 1992, was it successful or not, or if there any changes are required, and if they are required, what are those changes and how they can be implemented. So we have to see the achievement, we have to analyze. So on what parameters you will analyze, you'll check what objectives were there and whether these objectives we were able to fulfill or not. So the objectives were to have inclusive development, to have democratic governance. So for inclusivity, we have given reservation to women. So if you remember, if it was the Panchayati Raj first where women reservation was given, have to see how successful it was. Okay. So in the next lecture, we'll be talking about the panchayats, their execution, or women reservation bill. Okay. Thank you so much.